Joining us now is the eminent historian, Victor Davis Hanson, Hoover Institution Senior Fellow. Victor, welcome. So I was reading one of your pieces. I love this stuff. Powell will not cut interest rates. He has a personal stake in this. He feels aggrieved. He feels he has to be vindicated, and he's stubborn, and he will not show the same flexibility he did during the campaign year 2024. So could you expand on that? I think I understand where you're going, but that's very important, very fascinating. Tell us more, please.
Well, it's inconsistent. In March and April, when every day we picked up the Wall Street Journal and they forecast recession, stock market collapse, stagflation, and he kind of joined in with his public worries about the tariffs. That was the classical conditions when you think and worry over a stagnant economy, you'd cut interest rates, but he didn't. And even though he believed that the economy was heading south, and then when it didn't head south, he didn't, and there was no sign of inflation, he didn't cut them either. And then, of course, traditionally the Fed is reluctant to cut interest rates 60 days before an election, but he did that in 2024 when there really wasn't any sign that the economy was headed down. So he kind of lost credibility, and it's very critical for Donald Trump because he's kind of campaigned on reducing this budget deficit, and he's trying to do it with non-traditional mechanisms. He thinks he's going to get $200 billion in the DOGE cuts. The Treasury Secretary thinks they might get $1/3 trillion in the revenues from tariffs, maybe. But if he could just cut the interest rate sum, instead of paying $3 billion a day, we'd pay $2 billion, and we'd save another, I don't know, $1/3 trillion that way, and Trump would get into maybe cutting 40% of the budget deficit. And that's why Trump is railing so hard, because he's trying all of these different ways to get that deficit down without raising taxes or endangering his tax cuts. And I think he's right about it.
So why do you think, why is Powell aggrieved? Why won't Powell play ball? Why won't Powell partner? You know, let's put the politics aside. I know that's impossible nowadays, but he could partner with the president. He partnered with Joe Biden, if you ask me, okay? And I've been around a long time, Victor, and worked in the Federal Reserve System and worked with Fed chairmen who partner. They may not share every view with the president. It's an odd story. And what caught my eye is when you said he's aggrieved and stubborn. Aggrieved. Tell me about aggrieved.
Well, he doesn't understand the art of the deal the way Trump negotiates. So when Trump calls him too late, pal, or he uses ad hominem, he takes personal offense at that, and that's understandable. But he's got a responsibility to 340 million Americans. Maybe 100 million of them are paying mortgages, and it's a make or break deal for them when they're paying 7 and above on a 30-year mortgage. And so he's got to rise above it. And you know, that's just, I think he's very sensitive. He's kind of like Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland was broken by the Republicans when they they kind of delayed his Supreme Court nomination into nothing, and he never forgave them, and he was sort of an erratic and vindictive attorney general, and Powell's starting to show the same symptoms as Garland.
Powell's been very erratic as a chair. You're exactly right, Victor. He's been very, very erratic as chair. I mean, the odd thing, again, to me is, there's this view, I see it mostly in I'll call it the lefty media, but not always left, that the Fed, not only is the Fed independent, but it's hostile to the administration. And I don't see, that's not what the intent of the Federal Reserve was. It was not meant to be hostile. It was not meant to be in opposition, quote unquote. It was meant to be, you know, to work with it. All right? You're in charge of monetary policy. By the way, the Congress is in charge of monetary policy. The Fed is a creature of the Congress. But you see what I'm saying? It's changed from partnership to hostility, and I find that very strange.
It is, and that's because the Democratic Party does not control the Congress. They do not control the White House. They do not control the Supreme Court. They have no traditional levers of opposition to Trump. And they're looking for the administrative state, and they put pressure on the deep state. We saw that with the FBI, the CIA, in the past administration. They put pressure on these lower court district judges to step up. And take pressure. They put pressure on the Fed, and they said, "Do your part. We don't have the power to stop this Trump juggernaut, but maybe the Fed does. Maybe the administrative state does. Maybe you lower court district judges can exercise power that's not warranted." But it's a reflection of the impotence of the political opposition. They have to rely on institutional opposition to Trump.
Well, the Fed is part of the insurrection. How about that? I hadn't thought about that. It's a great point. Let me play a very fast clip from Trump doing a TV interview this morning about potential Fed appointees. Hang on one second. Here it comes.
I love Scott, but he wants to stay where he is. Both Kevins are very good, and there are other people that are very good, too.
So that's an abbreviated one, but Scott being Scott Bessent, who wants to stay at the Treasury, he and President Trump get along famously very, very well. Trump's quite happy with him. The two Kevins, as you probably know, Kevin Hassett, who was the director of the NEC, my old job, and Kevin Warsh, who's a private investor but was a Federal Reserve governor years ago and was very outspoken. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the personnel side of this thing? Who might be a better Fed chair?
Well, I have prejudice. I'm colleagues at the Hoover Institution with both Kevins, and I have a high regard to both of them. Kevin Warsh is more of a traditional, I guess, Fed selection. He's a banker. He's been on a Fed district before, and then Kevin Hassett is a polymath. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. He knows everything about economics. He's one of our best fellows. He has been at the Hoover. So either one of them would be excellent, in my view.
Flip a coin. I have the same view. I think they're both brilliant guys. They're both personal friends of mine. So I just hope one of them is the next Fed chair. I really do. Thank you, Victor. Victor Davis Hanson. We appreciate your thoughts very, very much.